Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. As Paul mentioned, this conference has been going a few years. I've spoken here a couple of times. Anybody heard me speak before? That's a triumph of hope over experience. That's very good. Thank you very much. First of all, I should say, for those of you who read carefully the advanced publications for these events, you'll have seen that the speaker for this slot was due to be Mike Marshall. Now, Mike is a colleague of mine. He's my successor as Group Security Director of the Shop Direct Group. Mike was taken quite seriously ill a couple of weeks ago. In fact, he's having an operation today, and I'm hoping everything's going to go well for him. And he rang me up and said, would I do this presentation? Now, Mike's got an information security background, and I don't. And if I were to try and give you a technical presentation, it would be like Simon Cowell trying to be convincing on celibacy. So Mike assured me, no, that's not the case. And in fact, he told me the title was Fighting Cybercrime Online and in the Physical World. And he said, Mike, what I'm proposing to do is to rehash a presentation that Mike and I did to the Association of Chief Police Officers in Sheffield in February this year, when we were actually trying to convince the Chief Police Officers of England and Wales that it was a good idea to listen to the problems that retail had with cybercrime and to help us more in tackling it. And what he didn't tell me, he tacked a bit on. He says, Mike offers a unique insight into one of the most established online fraud solutions on the market. Now, when he sent me the presentation, I know what he means, because since the conference, Mike has been using a supplier to see where Shop Direct's customers and Shop Direct have been attacked in the cyber world with phishing attacks. And that is in the presentation. I'll tell you about that as we go along. As for myself, 9 years I've now been working in retail and associated industries. As I said, I was originally working for Littlewoods, then Shop Direct. I'm now employed by March UK, which is the private holding company owned by the Barclay brothers that owns Shop Direct, and also Yodel, the distribution company, and Transactis, which is the company that is involved in anti-fraud solutions, and they're actually they've got a stand out in the concourse today. So that's quite a long introduction. Let's move on. I'm sure you're familiar. Important thing, those along the bottom there, they're I'll call them catalogues in old money. That some of the Shop Direct brands. Important thing is Shop Direct offer, as well as direct sales, they have a credit offer. So in other words, if you are a person of good standing, you'll get a credit account and you can order goods either online or from the catalogues, and you can get credit. And obviously, unlike PayPal, Shop Direct's not a bank; it doesn't have a high street presence, so there's no know your customer procedure. So obviously, there is an inbuilt vulnerability to fraud. Okay, that's the Shop Direct's head office, Skyway's house. You see, if you look at the roof line, that gives you a clue. It's one of the old Art Deco hangars of the original Liverpool airport, the one where the Beatles landed when they came back from America in 1965. Quite an impressive building. Looking at the turnover, 1.7 billion, 9,000 employees, 10.5 million customers. Just dwell on that number for a moment, because that means 10.5 billion sets of personal data that Shop Direct and its suppliers, who Shop Direct entrust their customer data to do various things with. So that's actually quite a huge responsibility and vulnerability in itself. 5 million of those customers currently trading. I accused Mike when I saw this slide of going over to the dark side of sales and marketing, because he's put up a slide which he assures me is very necessary. Again, showing the brands, showing our brands, and also the brands that we sell through our catalogues. You notice Woolworths down the bottom there. Woolworths didn't disappear. Well, it disappeared from the high street, but Shop Direct actually bought it and operate it as an online entity. Again, numbers, but quite interesting numbers. Everywhere year, Shop Direct sell over 50 million items. I was just going down to that list on the train this morning, and I thought there's only one of those items that fraudsters don't tend to go for. Anybody? No prize, but can anybody work out which one it is? Beds, yes, that's it. Yeah, but everything else, that would almost form the top of the pops list for fraudsters attacking Shop Direct and its brands. The call centre's handling over 20 million inbound calls a year, and we still do get telephone fraud. as well as online fraud. Again, idea of volumes. Warehouse and returns, 53 million items ordered into 28 million parcels because when one customer orders more than one item, they consolidate the parcels. Up to 6,000 parcels an hour, 540,000 parcels delivered every week. Huge volumes. Now, as I said, this was a presentation that we gave to the ACPO Cyber Conference in Sheffield. You might remember this because it attracted a bit of notoriety because about a week before the conference, there was an online teleconference between the Police Central E-Crime Unit at New Scotland Yard and the FBI talking about the arrangements for the conference. Anonymous hacked into it. Do you remember it appeared in the Times? And it caused it heightened the fact that anybody can be vulnerable to cybercrime. It was quite embarrassing for the organisers, particularly as during the conversation, the transcript of which was published in the Times, the Met officer can be heard describing John Grieve, the independent chairman. Fancy having a go at an independent chairman, describing it as mad as a box of frogs. John's got a very good sense of humour. He turned up at the conference wearing a tie complete with green frogs. And he also commented that Sheffield was a pit, which I don't think the Mayor of Sheffield, who welcomed all the delegates, was too impressed with. But anyway, so this agenda and these slides were about, I mean, I hope that you'll find them relevant, but they were relevant to Mike and I explaining to senior police officers the issues that retail faced. And I hope you'll find them useful. And what was particularly worthwhile is the fact we think we made some impact, and I'll explain as we go along. So tensions and issues, tensions within the industry for retail, problems we face, examples of the problems we face, how we tackle it, the law enforcement response or lack of it, and future risks and opportunities. Some background, strategic issues. I think some of you might recall that the government, in particular the Cabinet Office and Francis Moore, got interested in cybercrime, or at least it became evident they were interested in cybercrime last year when they published a UK cyber strategy. That was about concern that it was very important to the economy that our citizens felt confident to buy goods and services online, but also to interact with the state online. Having spoken to people in government departments, they're very concerned that we as citizens should interact with the state online because it's much, apart from anything else, it's much more cost effective than having people sat behind desks in public offices or manning phones. So they realised that it was very important. And the people who don't, lots of surveys indicate that up to about 30% of people will not trust the internet with their personal details. So that doesn't only affect business, but it affects government. Again, bearing in mind the police audience, and what they would know very well was a link to serious and organised crime, because there is a black market online where anything from, I think there was some in the weekend press, a journalist had infiltrated the site. There was actually a market, was not only selling credit card details and card details, but also guns and drugs. And I'll show you a black market site later on in the presentation. So again, there's a link between the cyber world and the real world in terms of serious crime. Industry tensions. If you are involved with trying to protect your organisation, retail organisation, from online fraud, you will run up against the sales and marketing people who, for very good reasons, do not wish you to place too many encumbrances on the customer's journey through your website because of the fear of increasing the abandonment rates. The sales and marketing people also like to find ways of making it easier for the customer to get hold of their parcel. So, for example, the Collect Plus initiative, which is another interest in our group, where the PayPoint stores, you can have your parcel delivered to a PayPoint store and collect it there if it's going to be impossible for you to be at home and sign for it. Now, obviously, that's brilliant for you as a customer, but it's also brilliant for the fraudster because they can quite easily get some fake ID off the internet and turn up, having opened an account in your name, ordered goods, and collect them. Another thing, this was, again, bearing in mind the police audience, under-reporting, unwilling, unable, and this was about retailers. And CSOC, I can't remember what the acronym stands for the life of me, but it's an agency that the Cabinet Office sponsored to do a survey of retail to find out why there was under-reporting of cyber and fraud. Unwilling was because of concerns about commercial reputation, because of concern that if the customer associates you with some sort of problem with cybercrime, they will, in fact, the retailer will actually get the blame. In fact, some people, some organisations, some retailers whose customers have received phishing emails purporting to be from them, the customers have blamed them. Now, it's totally irrational, but understandable. And the unable bit is that retailers who have sought to go and report serious cybercrime and fraud sometimes have found it difficult to find a police agency that will actually take it on. And for any of you in Catherine Bowen's presentation for the BRC just before lunch next door, that has come up in the BRC crime survey. Engagement with law enforcement. Similarly, the retailers reporting. Engagement with law enforcement. Similarly, the retailers were reporting that they were often finding it difficult to find the appropriate law enforcement agency to take their report of cybercrime or serious and organised fraud. Main cyber risks to retail. Stolen credentials traded on the black market. And this is a screenshot. You see, I know it's impossible for you to read from back there. But it's from a couple of years ago. And every one of these threads on this screen relate to offers of credit card details and lists of customers of one of our brands. And that is going on all the time. The point that the cyber risk to retail, that the citizen whose identity is compromised, and have any of you ever had your identity compromised, either your cards stolen and used, or any other form? For any of you that have, it's a very harrowing problem, and it takes a lot of sorting out. The National Fraud Authority did some research a year or so ago and suggested it can take up to 200 hours to restore your identity. Because once your identity is compromised, people are very wary about trading with you. And in fact, Shop Direct, our financial services team, actually have a team of about 10 people helping people with identity rebuilds. Because CYFAS, who I think are speaking this afternoon, CYFAS actually run a service to help you overcome that transitional period when your identity has been compromised. E-com fraud costs a lot of money. The financial loss, but also the prevention costs can be considerable. Shop Direct employ a team of over 100 people in Bolton working on checking, as well as all the technologies employed, checking on to try and detect false applications for, to open accounts in false names and details, and also transactions. And then there's the problem of false positives. If you are too over-enthusiastic with identifying fraud and you falsely identify what was good business to be fraud, that in itself has a cost. Linked to the next point, reputation risks. I mentioned them earlier, that if you do have a data loss or it becomes publicly known that your company has been associated with a data loss, or as I said, even directly, your company's name has been used for phishing attacks. There's the danger of loss of reputation and thus indirectly losing money. Hacktivists. I mentioned the embarrassing attack that the Metropolitan Police and the FBI had just before the conference that this was presented at. The Daily Telegraph website was another company in the ownership of the people that I work for, was attacked last September on the same day. I think it was Betfair, one of the betting companies was, and it attacked by hacktivists. It wasn't a denial of service attack with a view to extracting money by extortion. It was just to say we can do this, and they simply replaced the screenshot that you would expect to find when you went onto the site with something that said Happy Hacktivist Day. And they do it just because they can. There's a crossover. Some of them purport to be hacktivists, but they're actually involved with acquisitive crime. There's also, interesting enough, a link with, again, the physical world, links with some of the protest, anti-capitalist protest movements as well. So you get that link between the cyber world and the virtual world. Our world, and by that Mike and I meant, bear in mind we're talking to these senior police officers, we meant the retail world, online fraud in the many millions, and all the various surveys will tell you that it's many, many millions. Thousands of victims, again, the individual victims. something we're making the point, UK-wide, there are hotspots around the country, and if any of you live in South East London, I apologise for that, but it is a fraud hotspot for most online retailers. Phishing, I'm sure everyone here knows what phishing is, but just in case, it's when a criminal organisation sends an email communication to someone purporting to be from an organisation in order to get them to part with their personal information because they believe they're dealing with a trusted organisation when in fact they're not. Apologies. And is really most people's security on their home computers, laptops, are very low. So they're very, very vulnerable. And the fraudsters have found it easier to get information, personal information, actually from the people themselves, as opposed to hacking into to organisations to try and get it. The worldwide elements of this, again, you won't be able to see this from the room, but this is a perfect facsimile of the Very log-on screen. Very being one of the Shop Direct brands. This is what the customer would get if they click through. They're offered something. They're offered a discount, so they're invited to complete. And as far as if they fall for this, and our brands say, we tell our customers we won't be sending you these sorts of emails. If they fall for it, and they enter their details. And here's another example. Another Very one, a little one. A little one. They're all perfect, perfect facsimiles. Another Very one says we're currently engaged in customer information update. We notice that you need an update. Your Very click here online account. If they go through, their details are harvested, and the really clever bit, the really clever and organised phishers, is that it says well, if you want to go shopping, you can click here, and they click through to our genuine site. So they won't have a clue that until such times as things start getting obtained via their account, there's been a problem. Shop Directs, I've been there 9 years, and I started it off with the owner's support, and Mike Marshall's carried it on. We take a very proactive approach to fraud. We don't just try and stop what we can. About 90%, 95% is stopped at the front end in financial services. 5 to 10% gets through. That's still 7 figures and nearly 8 figures. So we go after the fraudsters. We don't just write it off. Mike's got a team of 9 field-based investigators and 6 IT security specialists in the last 12 months. And that actually produced a gasp at the ACPO conference because one or two of the police officers said, we wish we'd had 257 arrests in our fraud squad in the last 12 months. Now, when I say arrests, they've been obtained by giving the police information to make mostly controlled deliveries as a means of arresting fraudsters. I'll explain that a bit more in a moment. 2.1 million of fraud prevented by their activities. And we can get the police through the door. What they mean by that, now I'll explain controlled deliveries. If you spot a series of frauds going on, you can keep stopping them, but it's like squeezing down jelly. It will pop up somewhere else. So one of the things Shop Direct do is, and it's very difficult now because of, again, good customer experience. You can order from Shop Direct, I think it's up to 6 o'clock, and ask for a delivery the next morning. So you've only got a short window in order to identify, this is one of a series of frauds. So what Mike's team do is they'll get hold of the police and say, we've got these fraudulent goods. We can put a tracker on them. We can have them delivered. Can you be there? Because when somebody signs for those goods, they are involved with a very serious fraud, and it's worth X thousand so far. We'll have all the evidence for you. We'll be there to identify the property. And the goods are delivered. The police immediately at sign for the police go in. Obviously, they'll seize those goods, seize other goods from Shop Direct and other retailers often, but probably more importantly, seize the laptop or the PC or the mobile device and get a lot more data about how that fraud's been committed. A very successful MO when we can do it, but about 50% of the applications we make to the police, they say they can't do it, won't do it. So that was our point we were making that day. More than just fraud, we go through the door. Often we've had guns recovered, drugs recovered, lots of stolen goods recovered. And so we're saying to the police, look, there's an opportunity for you to get your hands on on very active, serious and organised criminals. Now we're now focused on e-crime gangs, and this is the. I'll whiz through because I'm conscious of time to follow that point up. We built our own IT forensic units, which we use to help the police forces, because often their IT forensic laboratories are sadly full up with child pornography cases waiting to be analysed. Proactively capturing victims' details before their credentials are used, and that links with the next point, proactively taking down phishing sites. And this is what I think Mike was alluding, and Mike says, yeah, we want to get the guys who put in the strings. So just as we've been trying to get hold of the physical criminals in the physical world, we'd physically like to get hold of the people who are committing the phishing attacks in the cyber world. And since the conference, and this is only since March, the background being last autumn in the peak trading period, because like most retailers, most of the business is done between October and Christmas, peak trading. Our customers can report via our website receiving phishing emails. It's not conspicuous, it's not easy to find. The sales and marketing people don't want to frighten the horses, but it is there. And it was running along about 10 or 15 reports a month. Suddenly, in October last year, it went to 400 or 500 a month. And at the same time, the identity frauds went like that. And so there was a clear correlation between the phishing attacks on our customers and the frauds. Mike engaged RSA, and you won't be able to read this email from the back, but it's from RSA monitor the internet for emails purporting to come from our company. It's very clever technology. If Mike was here, he could explain it to you. I can't. But what they are able to do, this report tells us that they've identified the email address on the top line, and it's alionpoint@gmail.com, which is being used for fraudulent purposes. It's a drop box. When the customer responds to the phishing email and they fill their details in, the details are dropped into a box of that email address. They may well be sent on somewhere else. Now, at the conference that we went to, the Police Central E-Crime Unit, or actually the Minister, James Brokenshire, announced that they were going to set up regional hubs for PCEU, one in the northwest, one in the northeast, one in the East Midlands. We made contact with the one in the northwest, and we're now actively working with them. When the drop boxes, they can trace it back to a physical address in the northwest. We've actually started trying to go after the cyber criminals. Again, it's trying to chase these people from the cyber world and the physical world. Mike's fascinated by this stuff. It might turn you on. This is a script that was captured by us RSA, used by a fraudster, to set up the phishing website. The next one is an example of the format of the data, which is, when it's captured by the phishing emails, goes back to the drop boxes. Amazingly, and it could only happen in this country, it's actually, we've found that, because obviously what we like to do when we find that we know somebody's received a phishing email and falling for it, we'd like to tell them. We're actually talking to the PCEU and the Crown Prosecution Service at the moment, because the way the Computer Misuse Act is written, RSA and ourselves might, theoretically, be committing a Computer Misuse Act offence by taking this data and protecting ourselves and protecting the individuals. It was a private member's bill that was adopted as a government bill, and no one thought to put in except to prevent and detect crime. But never mind. Hopefully that'll be addressed. Shop direct experience of working with law enforcement. I'll rattle through this. For those retailers in the room, you'll probably recognise what we were saying. City of London Police, superb. They're the lead force for fraud in this country under the fraud strategy, but unfortunately you can't really get them interested unless your fraud's running into 6 figures. But if you can, they're brilliant. Regional forces, there are 43 forces in this country. Some are good, some are very, very bad. Merseyside and GMP, we get very good results. Some forces officers have difficulty trying to find an excuse to say why. Some don't like crossing borders. Mike's wanting to know us. Mike's saying, well, when we work with police forces, they very much like the end product. Sounds a bit sinister, that last point you made. Once we get a contact, we never let him go. I know what he meant was that we do work with trusted partners. That screenshot there on the bottom is actually a police car that's just pulled over 6 West African fraudsters who've been committing frauds around the country, collecting BlackBerries from Collect Plus stores. As they were being chased down the motorway, they were throwing BlackBerries and documentations out of the windows onto the M5. They've only just been dealt with. It took about a couple of years, and they've all got substantial terms of imprisonment. yeah, and Mike's point, we need to work wider than the UK because of the international element. Yeah, the industry experience and concerns referring its engagement. Yeah, SDG aren't typical. A lot of the other retailers aren't as proactive as us, so some of them are going that way. Barriers to reporting. We mentioned some of these earlier, the CSOC survey, reputation, cost structures. This is important. Regional hubs. I've mentioned this has now started by PECU. We welcome them, support it. They've started. If you are a retailer and have you got a presence in the Northwest, Northeast, or East Midlands, I really would recommend you to find out where your regional hub is, make contact with them. We found them to be very, very helpful and useful. Not victimless crimes. I've made that. We were just re-emphasising that point. Syndicating data. Still difficult for retailers to get their data into the NFIB, National Fraud Intelligence Bureau. The confirmed fraud you can get in via CIFAS if you're a financial services organisation. Transactis, my colleagues outside there can tell you about the databases we're working on for syndicated third and first party fraud data. Yeah, I mentioned NFIB. Future risks from our perspective, growth in mobile, that's been mentioned already today. Social networking, vulnerabilities for internal risks through your staff using social networking. RSA, I'm not breaching any confidences here, they've made this public. RSA themselves were breached last year, and in the breach, in an attempt to get to a defence contractor in the States, probably from a foreign power, a lot of work went into finding that a key member, a senior person in RSA, used social networking, found out they had a contact in another company, sent an email purporting to be from that person. Because they were trusted, the email was opened and a problem was introduced into the system. It was detected and stopped. But expansion of retail to online, a lot of high street retailers now going into online, and so more risk for them. Reduced funding for the police and police commissioners, local priorities being set, another risk, and the need for international cooperation. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to whiz through these to finish it off. I obviously work slower than Mike does. Yeah, the international UK retailers extending the e-com market to Europe and beyond, and you heard something about that this morning. Thus extending black market for credentials, opportunities for cyber criminals to use against UK retailers trading abroad. Jurisdiction enforcement issues. I work with the next point on the slides on the ICSPA, International Cyber Security. There it goes. Protection Alliance, formed in 2011. Public-private partnerships. You remember William Hague from the Foreign Office chaired a conference last year, an international conference. One of the actions was to try and help countries that had problems where there was an origin of these crimes, and ICSPA went out as part of the delegation, and Ghana, which is top of the pile in terms of origins of cyber attacks, 50% of their graduates are unemployed. There's no legislation that actually covers committing the equivalent of Computer Misuse Act offences against foreign entities, and also the money that comes back from the United States and Great Britain is widely regarded as magic. So conclusions. Cyber for retail, threat to the public interest as well as the private interest for the reasons of the strength of the economy. Cyber threat increases as more retailers go online, and that's the point directed at the police. They could do better. British Retail Consortium. IMRG, can never remember what it stands for, but it's an organisation for internet retailers, and ICSPA, possible vehicles for working. The regional hubs, we said we were really pleased about that. And the need to syndicate intelligence, and I mentioned NFIB, and I mentioned Transactis. I expect these slides will get circulated in due course, and I've left some useful contacts there. I'm sorry I had to gallop through that, but I hope that there was something there that you found useful. Thank you very much.